Thank you very much. Calling to order the Council Operation Intergovernmental Relations and Public Transportation Committee for today, March 1st. It is 3:03. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
And just as a reminder to all who are watching, and this meeting is being recorded on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Sweeney,
Present.
Ms. Simon, Ms. Baker,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent. There is a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're here to talk about 02-020-002 regarding the amendment for the whistleblower provisions. This has been around for a long time, and I've had the privilege of being the chairman for about a month now, and I've had exhaustive conversations with our dedicated legal team, Councilman Miller, and our Inspector General. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Councilman Miller, the sponsor of this piece of legislation, for comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to my colleagues. During the past few weeks, we've had further discussions among council persons, council staff, our current and former Inspector General, the Law Department, the PRC, and others. And while there remains differing views on some details, the new draft is an improved version that I believe is worthy of your consideration. I will describe the new version and listen to any comments or questions, and if there seems to be general support, I will then offer a motion to accept the substitute. I'll start with some minor details that should not be controversial. Number one, we satisfied the PRC's concerns about the remedy language. The new language lists the remedies that the PRC knows that it has, which are rehiring and reinstatement with back pay, and also allows any other remedies that are permitted by general law. Second, on legal advice provided to the PRC by the prosecutor's office, we added language stating that the Inspector General shall investigate any whistleblower complaints received, following the County Code and Article 15 of the Charter. Third, on council legal staff recommendation, language is revised so that whistleblower complaint protection applies when someone makes a whistleblower complaint, but not on mere intent to make such a complaint. And on Alexa Beeler's recommendation, the word whistleblower is substituted for the word ethics in section 406.02b. I'll now discuss the two major questions that surfaced during the last discussion: verbal complaints and mandatory reporting. One of the main things that this legislation does is that it distinguishes between a whistleblower complaint and a retaliation complaint. A whistleblower complaint is when you report something that you believe is being done wrong, that warrants investigation. A retaliation complaint is when you say, I made a whistleblower complaint, and because of that whistleblower complaint, somebody retaliated against me. So the new draft contains compromise language on verbal complaints. It says that a whistleblower complaint may be either verbal or written, but a retaliation complaint must be in writing. Also, language is added to require that whoever receives a verbal whistleblower complaint must contemporaneously create a written record of the complaint, so that if there needs to be an investigation of a retaliation complaint later, or a follow-up on the whistleblower complaint, we'll have a record. Regarding mandatory reporting, I'll start by saying that removal of the mandatory reporting language in the original draft of this resolution was not an oversight. It was done intentionally on former Inspector General Griffin's recommendation. He cited 3 reasons. 1, it might actually discourage reporting because people who didn't act on their knowledge within the required 5-day reporting period might fear getting in trouble for reporting after the 5 days and therefore not report at all. Second, it could create a hostile work atmosphere when people are required to report on each other. And 3, it would be difficult to enforce. I know that mandatory reporting on its face seems like the strongest approach to ethics, but I don't think it's the best. It's just not the same as reporting child abuse, where a child's life and safety may depend on responsible adult behavior. Whether an employee is willing to report on a colleague is a very personal decision. Some people will take the position that it's not my position to be a snitch for management, regardless of what we write in the county charter. Therefore, the new draft does not include mandatory reporting, but it does include language stating that our onboarding and ongoing ethics training shall be designed to strongly encourage employees to report any wrongdoing that they become aware of. We have worked diligently and collaboratively over an extended time to prepare this draft, and I ask for your support of the proposed substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Inspector General, would you please come on up?
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, do you want me to read the legislation into the record?
Yes, and that was good. I went out of order a little bit, but one of our colleagues might have to go somewhere, so I'm trying to do it this way. Please read the.
Ordinance number 2020-0002, amending sections 406.01 and 406.02 of the County Code to clarify contents of the whistleblower provisions.
Thank you. I read about half of it in the beginning. Completing that. Madam Inspector General, welcome. Thank you for your patience with me and going exhaustively over this legislation, and your input was greatly appreciated and I believe necessary. So please proceed with your comments.
Thank you. Interim Inspector General Alexa Beeler. I agree with the changes that you made. I think that this incorporates, like you said, the various parties that had input. I do not have an opinion on the may versus shall for the reporting. I see the policy reasons for both sides. I also talked to former Inspector General Mark Griffin and understood why he wanted to remove the mandatory reporting language to may. He also made a point that not a lot of people are aware of the reporting requirement, so they might be in violation and have no idea. So there's also that to consider. Other than that, I think that I support it. I think it serves its purpose and the policy reasons behind the change. And I'm open to questions, but I have
That's
nothing
exactly
else.
how you should end it. If you don't mind staying up there while we have any questions by the council members.
Of course.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
I don't have questions. I have comments. So thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, with regard to mandatory reporting and us consulting with Mark Griffin, he's no longer here. I don't know why we keep contacting the former Inspector General about this. I prefer to defer to the current person, which is you, who does not have a position. I think we're watering this down. This was put in originally as part of our ethics code to make sure that the commissioner scandal that we encountered when we came into office would not happen again. And when you have something weakening this, watering it down, not making our employees responsible for reporting, things such as theft that they witness, harassment, any kind of violation is not acceptable to me. If there's a problem with the 5 days, then when I spoke with and reviewed this with the sponsor, who was here at the beginning, by the way, I suggested to take out the 5 days, which would have been the remedy. And instead, we're just making this some type of voluntary report. So if we have something going on that's illegal, our employees or elected have no obligation to report that, and that frankly is unacceptable to me. So I'm not going to support watering this down. And there was other changes that I don't know if they were ever made. You know, the version I have doesn't look like it was made. I guess this is not for Inspector General, more for staff. 406.01C includes whistleblower who shouldn't be a whistleblower yet. I went over this with our legal counsel, and I still see that in that provision, that whistleblower is still there. That should not be there, because somebody who hasn't reported yet is not a whistleblower. So, you know, I'm frankly disappointed that we're taking out any kind of reporting. And the policy behind this, you know, you err on the side of protecting the taxpayers. You don't err on the side of somehow, you know, not having an obligation on people that work here to report. So that's my main concern about this. I added the contemporaneous language if we're going to include verbal, which I appreciate that being incorporated into this if we're going to go that route. And I asked for any kind of data about people reporting that somehow are retaliated against, or, you know, at our last meeting, and I don't know if that was ever submitted because there is no record of that. Is that correct?
It is with our agency, but the PRC would be the entity that would have that. I did speak with the director of the PRC, who does. She was unable to remember a case where somebody was denied appeal rights because the complaint was not in writing. So, but that's not to say that there isn't still an issue with not allowing the verbal to have the same protection, because maybe somebody just didn't pursue their appeal rights because they knew they wouldn't be able to because of the way the statute was written or the ordinance was written.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate if we're going to go with some verbal definition that that's a contemporaneous record keeping.
Yes.
So that's, I guess, the best we can do to safeguard that. But, you know, with your position, you're neutral on having a mandatory reporting?
I see the policy reasons for both sides. So, and the reason I had spoken with Mark Griffin when we had the first meeting on this.
Just on that point?
Yes.
I asked you to talk to Mark Griffin. So.
At the, right.
Yes. So I just wanted to make sure that.
Because I wanted to see what he saw in practice.
I'm going to be a little bit, not fussy, but just you're presenting now. It's normally through the chair, so I can have some control over the meeting, if you don't mind. That's maybe inappropriate, but I just wanted to share that.
No, absolutely, that's not inappropriate. So, as far as the mandatory versus the shall versus the may, I think the policy reason behind the shall, I understand through the chair to Councilwoman Simon. I understand the meat behind making it mandatory, that we are requiring employees, and therefore, in theory, more employees will be stepping up to report, and that the purpose will be served to prevent the problems of the past. But in practice, I think what was happening is that wasn't always the case. Employees were intimidated to do so, and I appreciate the removing of the timeline. But also, from what I understand, not all of the employees were even aware of the reporting requirement.
Mr. Chair, to our Inspector General, so what? I mean, you make them aware. That's our job. So
Correct,
you
and through
you
the
don't take
training.
things out of an ordinance because people don't know about it. The burden lies on your office and HR to inform employees. You don't just remove something because people didn't know about it, that you might as well not have a manual at all, because if employees don't know to look, then why are we even bothering? And by the way, let's just take it out altogether. There's no may. I mean, that means nothing. May report, we don't need that in writing, correct? I mean, why even have that?
Through the chair to Councilwoman. I think that by having the may and by encouraging employees to report wrongdoing when they see it, I think that this ordinance is important because it ensures the employees that there will be protection and it ensures them a method to report. I don't foresee that the complaints that we receive will decrease because of the language. I think people are eager to report and to have our outlet be, or to have our agency be an outlet for that reporting.
To the Inspector General, you mean people are eager to report? Is that what you just said?
Maybe eager is too strong of a word, but I think that they are very willing to report wrongdoing that they see.
Then why do we need this in here? Why do we have may?
To let them know the avenue that they can report. They may make a whistleblower complaint to us, to their supervisor, to HR.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for your contribution. Do you have, on her point of should the,
On a separate point, if I could,
on the
Mr.
separate
Chair.
point that she brought up
Yes,
regarding the.
yeah, Brendan Doyle,
language.
council staff, if I may, Councilman Simon. With regard to C, we did make that change from any whistleblower identified in section 4006 to any individual identified in section 40601. So we did make that change.
Sorry. The copy I have in front of me, March 1st, attached to the agenda, it looks like the one that I went over with you, and there's no changes to it.
Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Simon, it's in the separate handout.
I see that, but there's no, I apologize, there's no underline or indication of what was changed on the substitute version. So I'm trying, there's nothing
that's-
indicating what was even.
Can you go very specifically on the handout that's on top of us, so we can read it verbatim together? Tell me where it is, and let's read it together to make sure it's in there.
Well, I mean, everything was changed without any indication. I don't know, we'll be here all day at that point, but this.
Since you have a very specific question.
This specific question,
Yeah, I'd like to get that specific question.
any individual, I see it's changed to see on this thing.
Right.
Yes.
It is,
I see.
that's correct.
Yep. Okay.
And then we can work on the red lining or black lining.
Yeah.
In the future.
Well, we
No, there's no need to comment. We
Understood.
appreciate it.
Well, Mr. Chair, I am curious why.
we were asked to make a clean copy because there were, because this has been a 2.5-year longer, I think, process. The amount of the strikeouts and bolds that we had were becoming almost sort of a Frankenstein looking piece. And so for ease of the council members' understanding of what is being proposed, we made it into a clean copy of that language.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Miller?
staff doesn't have to wear the jacket for this. I requested the clean copy. For exactly the reasons that Brendan stated, the cross-outs, the redlining stuff had gotten so complicated that it was just very difficult to know what was in and what was out, and I just felt it easier to work with a copy that showed what is the ordinance going to look like if it's approved.
Thank you, and that's what we're dealing with today. What was final version is on our desk to be under consideration.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Esquire. Appreciate that. Any other comments? I have one. Oh, Madam Councilwoman, please.
I'm not in the weeds of this. I'm hearing this for the first time, so bear with me. My question, does this
Alexis.
overall strengthen or weaken the whistleblower language?
Dale, you go first, and then Alexis.
This legislation overall dramatically strengthens the whistleblower protections because it allows whistleblower complaints to be made verbally as well as in written. It also clearly delineates between a whistleblower complaint and a retaliation complaint. It specifies a clear process. When there's a retaliation complaint, it's going to be it's going to be investigated by the PRC. It specifies what the possible remedies are. So, I think that it greatly enhances protections, and I think the language that we have where we're going to strongly motivate but not mandate reporting, I think that we're going to do just as well or better on what's reported with that language.
You have anything to add? You don't have to. Councilwoman?
Excuse me, Councilwoman Baker, you make sure your mic is
Sorry,
on.
I'm asking the Inspector General if she agrees with the, with this version being a stronger version, and that within the inner workings of creating this, if that was the intent.
So by stronger, I guess there's two ways to look at it. I do agree with Councilman Miller that it enhances the whistleblower protections. It expands the definition of a whistleblower to anyone that comes to us with any form of wrongdoing, whereas the prior ordinance focused on ethics violations. This allows reporting of any kind to us. And then for all the other reasons delineated by Councilman Miller, I do think that the protection for the whistleblower, for the complainant, is stronger, and the verbal reporting, because I understand the hesitation with the verbal reporting, but when people come to us with a verbal complaint, we don't just let it be verbal. I mean, somebody could come to us, never submit something written, but we might have interviews with them. We might have follow-up questions. It might be more detailed than the written complaints that we do receive. So I do think it enhances the protections for the complainant. I do understand the may versus shall, the mandating of the reporting. And like I stated before, I do see the policy reasons for either way. It is up to the council to determine what language should be in there. I can envision a training where it is encouraged, the reporting, the methods to report, the reasons you should report, and then in actuality, in practice, how that would play out. I think that there wouldn't be much of a change for what's happening now versus what would happen if we included may instead of shall in the language. So I think that as far as if we're leaving it may versus the mandate, I guess there's an argument that it is weaker in that sense, but in actuality, I don't know that the results will be weaker, but I do think this certainly enhances the whistleblower protections for the complainant himself or herself.
Councilwoman?
I guess I would ask that, given the new language that's before us, do you believe that there would be more that would step up and perhaps share what they feel is either an ethics violation or matters of wrongdoing? Do you think that this legislation, and I can ask the sponsor also, that having this new legislation would encourage more participation if this was enacted?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Baker, I quite honestly don't know that it would affect the results much. I think that,
I have a comment.
yes.
If you want my 2 cents on this.
Absolutely, I'm
It's
done.
just, putting this in place and putting the educational training out there is gonna be the tool to push people, push our colleagues, push anybody that can share wrongdoing. And I think it's gonna have a big impact if it's done in a rolled out sequential way and not continuous. So that would be my take on the global operation, which is driven by this piece of legislation. I didn't interrupt, but I just did.
No.
So, my comment is that the training is critical, and that I don't see a huge change in the amount of reporting, but I do think that the whistleblower protections are greatly expanded. And I think when this is explained to people and they know that they're gonna have recourse if they get retaliated against, when this is explained to people, I think that it'll produce some improvement in the reporting. Currently, the process that you go through when there's retaliation is really not very well specified, and only a small number of retaliation complaints have been handled, despite the fear of retaliation being widespread.
Thank you. The floor is still yours, Councilwoman.
Sorry, I'm just trying to work.
You take the time. You got the floor. We can keep talking. I'll come back to you.
Well, I guess if language, it seems like we're caught on this language of 5 days and shall and should. I mean, if we were able to compromise and make it a shall and make the 5 days go away, does that help in what it is we're doing here and still make this, I'm using the word stronger than the legislation that we are now?
It's just my understanding. It sounds stronger and less effective, or with training, with the suggestion of may, give them the path to do it, will it be more, will the results be greater? And I firmly believe that. And it's kind of, my thoughts are, if I could just jump in now, whistleblower is a scary word nowadays, just in general. Oh my God, a whistleblower. This is the first step, I believe, in changing the culture of Cuyahoga County with the language that's here, encouragement. It's part of it's okay to do because this is what you get paid for. So I think long-term, and it starts here, this is going to be a wonderful tool to help make sure our government works as transparent and honest as possible. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Mr. Chair? Oh.
Councilwoman Simon, then Councilman.
I'd like to respond to Councilwoman Baker that there's no way we can justify taking out a mandatory reporting for a crime and to somehow attest that this is going to be stronger. I mean, parts of this are stronger if we want to be very clear about what's happening here. If we interpret that now a whistleblower includes a verbal complaint and there's protection available, yes, that aspect is stronger. But when you take away a major piece of the legislation that we put in place right after the county corruption scandal, to now take that out and think that training, which by the way has been going on for 10 years, so this isn't something new. I mean, we implemented and mandated training. Employees must go through this, so this isn't something new. This is something employees have been subjected to, and rightfully, since this inception. So I don't understand how we can sit here and take away a mandatory reporting for a crime and somehow say that overall this is, you know, stronger. It's not. Parts of it are stronger, but this is really weakening the intent of the original legislation. And if you take away the 5 days, I think that is the compromise, because I understood, and you know, I'm happy about Mark Griffin weighing in on this, but I can have our original Inspector General who weighed in on this extensively. We took months to establish this ethics code, this provision, this ordinance, months working with our Inspector General, who had a different opinion than Mark Griffin. So if we're going to keep going back and talking about prior Inspector Generals, I want to talk about why we put this in. We faced the biggest scandal in our county. A new government came from that because people did not report criminal activity. And if we take this out and somehow think this, I'm a broken record, it makes no sense. I mean, this is, you know, clearly on its face, we're weakening this. I will support this if we add mandatory language, take out the 5 days, because there was a concern that people, if on day 6 decided to report, that they would get in trouble for not adhering to the 5 days. Because sometimes it takes some time for employees perhaps to understand what they witnessed or heard. So take that out, and then there's significant opportunity for people to report that which they should be reporting. I mean, the residents of this county deserve better than a may. And I suggest we don't even have that in there, may report. Of course they can, you know, we don't even need that. So that would be my solution, which I suggested earlier. Take out the 5 days, keep it mandatory for these significant infractions, and then we strengthen this.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments. And Councilman Miller.
Mr. Chairman, to my colleagues, I continue to disagree strenuously. We have talked a whole lot for months and months about morale and making this an attractive place to work and supporting our employees. And I believe that it is profoundly disrespectful to not respect the right of employees to make their own decision about how to handle a situation when they see something. Nevertheless, I've heard enough, and we prepared another version. The second version does exactly what Ms. Simon suggested. It contains the exact same language with the one change that we change shall to may, and we eliminate the 5-day reporting requirement. So I would ask the staff, do we have copies? Okay. You can't win on everything. I'm willing to accept it.
May I ask a question
Absolutely.
to the Inspector General?
What are you doing, Dan?
It was a good point made about the training piece. And I know that you mentioned that training was a big part of this new legislation. So how does the training differ from what we are currently doing now as to what we would be doing in this legislation?
Well, we would still be, it would just depend if council lands on may versus shall. Right now, the training does state that there is a mandatory reporting requirement. So
Do you mind repeating that?
So as it stands right now, new employees are trained that there's a mandatory reporting requirement. So the training piece is there. It would just look different if council decided to change the shall to the may.
Other than that, there is training. They understand.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not just for new employees, isn't it?
There's ongoing ethics training for all employees, but there's also onboarding.
So Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we accept the Plan B substitute.
Is
If
there
I
a
may,
second?
I was just told that this does not contain the 5-day elimination,
That's correct.
so we would have to amend it.
No, it does.
Oh, it does not include it,
Does
so-
not include the 5-day
Already
requirement.
taken care of, got
it.
Sorry.
But it requires reporting.
Second.
Second.
Yep. On this version that was just handed to me,
Right.
it's a shall but no 5 days.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Nay. So it wins 3-1.
Okay.
So what we have right now is the amendment is before us, and the amended version, we're going to call ordinance number 0200, or 02-020-0002 as amended. Let's take a roll call vote.
Calling the roll on the amended, on the proposed substitute.
This is on referral to council, is that correct?
Referral to council.
Right, okay.
We need a motion and a second,
Uh,
for second reading.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to refer ordinance 2020-002 as substituted to the full council for second reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Please call a roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Sweeney,
No.
Ms. Simon,
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
The legislation moves to the full council. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Inspector General. We went out of order a little bit, so I'd like to have public comment, and our first public comment is
Lou.
Lou, please come on up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm very glad, very happy, even I would say I'm excited to be here to listen to the discussion about this particular legislation. You will say, a homeless person, why are you excited about this? That's because if you have seen all my emails in the past few weeks, we have a smaller scale situation just like this one. For people living in the shelter or any kind of shared public facilities, when you have been mistreated, something is wrong, should you report it? And you know you will be retaliated for sure. This is the reason why, for the bigger scale like our county, if we want to do everybody good, fairly, to make sure everybody can do their job without being retaliated, this is a very serious, important legislation. However, my wish here is, after we settle this debate, should we be able to extend this all the way down, have a smaller scale versions into all our public services? Right now, I'm still in this particular disaster with the shelter service because the current setting, in this case, I will label myself as maybe whistleblower, the snitch, whatever you want to call. Whenever we reported something, are we believed? No. So we can still be retaliated again and again. And this is wrong. Just like we want to eliminate a chance to have another county-wide corruption. Same thing. We do not want the people being mistreated, abused, harassed, retaliated, even homeless people, even people in the county jail, even people in the nursing home, the elderly, sick people. I believe we have the same human rights as everybody else. So I congratulate all of us. Through this discussion, we understand this legislation's importance and how it will help us. And I really say congratulations to all of us. But please help the people in disadvantage in our society. Will we have this kind of benefit? Be protected away from retaliation continuously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou, and I look forward to coming to the women's shelter with Councilwoman Turner in the near future, and we'll try to understand a little bit more and try to be helpful. Approval of the minutes from the January 18th, 2022 meetings.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay? Any miscellaneous business? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.